Thank you for joining us again. This is Sunil Chandy, and we're on Food for Thought, a ministry out of Christ Episcopal Church. And we thank you for connecting with us. And today we are again at a very special place in our church, and that is our choir room at Christ Episcopal Church. The room in which there is so much music and learning and community that happens. And we're with, again, our illustrious choir director and music director, George Kent, who is celebrating his 65th year as choir director here at Christ Church. And so we're so very grateful to have him, and then so very grateful that we're able to talk with him today about service music. And he's going to teach us about some really wonderful, giving us wonderful insights about the music that we use in our church. George, thank you for being with us.
Oh, well, thank you for putting up with me.
Oh, not at all. It's not even, it's not a chore. It's a joy. And every time I speak with you, George, there's always insight that you give us. And I know that over the past year, we've had several conversations about music and the music that we use in the church. And it's so important to us, and it's very popular. And so today I'm looking forward to our discussion of service music.
Well, okay, let's begin. I thought I would give you a little bit of a backdrop as to how we got to where we are. The Episcopal Church has a great deal of music in its service, and that's because, of course, it's the Anglican Church of England, just brought over here. And the Anglican Church, of course, goes back to the Roman Catholic Church. And so there are two distinct types of services. There are the so-called hourly services, the monastic hours, if you will, and I'll talk about those in a minute. And then, of course, the central service to the church, the Mass or the communion service. But let's begin with how did we get to the morning prayer and evening prayer. I put on the board here the monastic hours, which are from the Roman Church, which started at 4 o'clock in the morning with matins, then lauds, then prime, tierce, sextus, none, vespers, and eventually compline at the end of the day. That's a long day, and that's a lot of services, because interspersed with those were various masses. And we'll get to those. For us, however, what happens is that the Anglicans take in particular matins and the Vesper service as the main morning and evening service. And matins becomes morning prayer, if you will.
Yeah.
For us, and the Vespers becomes evening prayer. And if it's sung, it's even song. Now, what's sung is the important thing. Matins, as it started with the first hour of the day, really at 4 o'clock in the morning, if you will, the Brits move it up to a more respectable hour of 10 or 11, and we've taken the route as well. But what is sung, other than the hymns for the congregation, are what we call canticles.
Yeah.
And a canticle, frankly, a translation or rough definition is a short song of praise. And that is almost true until you get to the Te Deum or the Benedicite, which goes on for 3 pages, but most of them are short. The ones that are retained for us in morning prayer here are the Venite, the Benedictus Est, and the Jubilati.
Yeah.
The English disposed of the Venite and used the Te Deum. So that's a major difference there. But these are literally taken from the Psalter as far as where the texts come from. And they are chanted by the choir, or they're set into what we would call a festal setting. For example, if you were just recently Prince Philip's funeral,
Right.
they sang the Jubilati, which he had commissioned. He had Benjamin Britten write that piece, and we've sung that piece here many, many times. That's more of a festal setting. That's a strict choir setting, very fancy and involved, not for the congregation. But the canticles come in two forms. They come either, for us in the Episcopal Church, they come in plain chant, which means unison, or they come sung to what we call Anglican chant, which is harmonized, where we have soprano, alto, tenor, bass parts as such. And there are psalters, strictly plain chant, which we have here. We have strictly Anglican chant psalters as well. And there are three methods of chanting, or if you will, the same way you would read them in a service. Direct, which means everybody does the entire psalm. Or responsorial, where you have a reader with one verse responded to by the congregation, or choir would sing, for example, Psalm 121, and then parts. But so that the soloist or the soprano section takes unison and then responded. Or you have antiphonal, which is group against group. So in a normal choir setting where you have divided choir, one verse or a half verse finished with this, and generally that's the possibilities of doing those. But those are canticles, and in evening prayer we have the same. We have the Magnificat, and the Nunc Dimittis, sung by the choir, either in plain chant or in Anglican chant, or again, you can have very festal settings. We sing quite a number of them for special occasions. For example, during Easter, we would do a festal setting probably, or Whitsunday, or Ascension, Pentecost, the start of Pentecost. But that is from the hour services. And that's what's going on there. Now, if we get rid of all of that and talk about the communion service.
Well, just a quick question on this. It's just I remember in seminary the movement from the divine hours to the form that we have with Thomas Cranmer helping us to rewrite the Book of Common Prayer in the 1552 version. And moving to the matins and evening prayer, the idea being that, and I love this idea, that it was the idea of moving towards a common worship, so that that all people that in England would be able to engage in this act of prayer, and not just having this heroic sense of doing it every 3 hours from 4 o'clock.
No, and again, there are Anglican monasteries where the hours are kept. But for the common usage, if you will, the laity is involved.
And I love that. I sense that we are all now called to be a community of prayer, and that even the person who is the doctor or the engineer or the custodian, or the person who prepares the lunches for the school, they're all called to this manageable prayer services almost at times.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's of course, if you go back to England, that is a singing nation.
Yeah.
No question about it. Everybody sings, you know. I can't say that that's true here.
Yeah.
Although,
George, I think our Westerly is a singing kind of community, and I think part of it, I always think it really, the credit goes to people like you and Florence before you who have helped music to be a part of our community, and I think that's
it's always been a very musical community. That's true. Somebody, frankly, should do a documentary on that.
Yeah.
Because it goes way back.
We should get maybe Caswell.
Even to when my mother was in public school, there was a gentleman here, Robert Valentine. He was called Pop Valentine. And when I was a graduate student in Boston, I was in one of the major music stores there getting music for I guess for me or for choir, I don't remember. But the old gentleman there said, "You're from Westerly, Rhode Island. Pop Valentine." I said, "Yeah." And he told me the most fantastic story, which was not for this conversation, it could take too long. But there was a tradition going through this town, there's no question.
I think
it's been carried even today in the public schools.
I think it's beautiful. I'm sorry to take it away from that.
No, that's okay. I just, fine, we should.
And then in terms of the Eucharist.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, now if we want to talk about, and I'll just use Mass for a short term.
Yeah.
But there are two parts that are sung to the Mass. There's the so-called ordinary, and there's called the propers.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two different categories. And the propers are for the proper text for the particular day that you're worshiping on, whereas the ordinary are items that are always sung every Mass. They're ordinary. These are things like, for example, the Kyrie eleison.
Mm-hmm.
The Gloria in Excelsis, I'll shorthand here for time, but the Gloria in Excelsis. Sanctus.
The Sanctus, yeah. And I would love to know which is your
Benedictus.
favorite settings, though, by the way. I would love to know which is your favorite.
Oh, I got several.
I can imagine.
Benedictus qui veni, and then the Agnus Dei.
Yeah.
And these items are the items that composers will take and make a concert version. For example, Bach, the B minor Mass, are these items, whereas the propers, which involve the introit, and again these texts relate to the particular day, so you're talking Easter things and Christmas things, whatever. Then you have the gradual. And that's interesting because you know where that comes from, the gradual, as far as the word usage?
No. Tell me.
It was always chanted on the steps to the altar, the gradus, if you will. And that's where that came from. Of course, that's a thing of the past, because we're not on steps anymore much. Then the offertory. And the communion. So these are items that again exist in plain chant, and for many years we sang them here. We sang the propers and the ordinary in plain chant, and then whatever versions we were doing. And the hymnal contains the settings for these ordinary services, some of which are designed for congregational participation, and some which are designed for just choir. Again, it depends on what you can do successfully
Yeah.
With a large number of people who don't rehearse. But that's basically what the items of the communion service are, as such. I forgot. I just realized. Very important, right here, credo.
The credo. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What about the Lord's Prayer in between? Does that?
Well, that's in the service, but it's not considered part of the ordinary. I mean,
Ordinary, yeah.
yeah. And there are all kinds of items that show up like that.
So George, why did we move away from? I mean, it's just. Why did we move away at Christ Church Westerly from having both the propers and the ordinary?
It might have been a change in rectors. I don't remember, to be honest. But
okay. It's also right now very difficult at this stage because we're in COVID. But
and the other practical thing, which is not anything to do with the logistics of the liturgy, but I'm always trying to be very careful that I don't make music the most important thing in the service.
Yeah.
To the extent where people are saying, well, I can't get involved, so I think it's very important to maintain that. So if you're singing the propers are not for congregation participation, these days certainly. Maybe in an academic situation, but that's not the norm. So I think I have to be careful of that.
No, and actually I appreciate that, because what it is we do have a singing congregation. They are over the years they've learned I think a great deal, and I even see it right now. It's such a challenge for them not to sing when because they're behind Mass and we've got this COVID situation. But and so having that balance between choir leading and helping us glorify God, and then also being able to sing in the congregation is very important. I think that because the music is a ministry to us, and it helps us to find our connection to God, and express it also.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Anyway, that's really what's going on. And of course, aside from the items of the liturgy as such, we have the anthem for the choir. And of course, that's what happens during the anthem.
It happens. Well, during the anthem, I am transfixed.
No, what you're doing.
Transfixing.
I want to know what the treasurer of the church is thinking. The offertory anthem is where the collection is taken, so that better be very good.
It better be.
So they can dig into the
I'm thinking also, like when the collection is, I'm also behind the altar, preparing the altar, getting ready too, and it's. But I've got to tell you, there have been moments, George, where I'm just transfixed by the music. I'm really enjoying the way it sounds, and it captures the emotion for the moment as we move into this second part of the service, which is the Eucharist, which is our great Thanksgiving.
Right. Yeah. And just a small term, but in terms of the anthems as such, from the Renaissance backwards, we have this term, motet, which by definition is a sacred, polyphonic, meaning interweaving parts, choral piece in Latin, which takes its text from the Vulgate Bible. If it doesn't have all of those characteristics, it's not a motet by definition. And the Vulgate, of course, is the official Bible of Rome. Yeah.
Right. When was the last time we did a motet? I don't know if.
We do them all the time. Yeah, the Bird Ave Verum, Mozart Ave Verum. These are motets, and there are tons of them out there. And of course, the Renaissance was a high point. The polyphony of the Renaissance has not been equal since, really. Things change rapidly, and of course, then you get into the Reformation and the advent of the chorale, which is just another name for a hymn.
Mm.
We've talked about that before here, but those are the other things that are involved in the service from a singing standpoint. So it's quite a pile of music.
It is.
Yeah.
Now, and of course that requires a lot of practice.
Yes.
And usually.
Yeah. Well, anything does.
Right.
And do it well. Yeah.
And so, I mean, and just for our viewers who are watching, how much practice does that require from our congregation, or a choir which has been singing together for a while?
No, over a year. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it's going to be fun getting them back in shape.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. And once we get back to being able to sing together, that's going to be important.
Yeah. It's going to. I been thinking a great deal about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and I'll tell you, it's, and I don't know with the current state of what's happening with the virus, but hopefully as more people get vaccinated, we'll be able to kind of get that our singing back. But
yeah, I think it's a question of that. Really.
Yeah. But I do know that people are just waiting because because singing is such a part of the human experience, and music is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's been with us all the time.
Yeah, and there was somebody once told me, and I kind of got offended by this a little bit, that music is God, and I don't think that's the way you approach it. I think you approach your attitude, which I think is so laudable, and it speaks to me so much, is that it's a tool. Music is a way to enter into an experience of God, and that's what I sense from you, and that I appreciate greatly.
Yeah, I think we ask God for a lot of help.
Yeah, that's right, and I mean it's just a beautiful thing. We're actually, we spent a lot more time than I imagined. We usually finish this program in about 20 minutes, but of course it's now about like 30 minutes, I think.
Well,
and
I'm fine.
You know what? It just means that we need to get back to more later. But for our people who are watching, we do want to thank you, George, for all that you do for us. And again, for being able to explain some of these really important and things that might seem mysterious to the layperson who is in the midst of our congregation, and they just come in and all of a sudden they find themselves in a different space where they're connecting to God in a different way. But there's a whole lot behind that, and you're just opening that curtain for us a little bit, and we thank you for this.
Thank you.
Folks, we'll end our time together. Again, thank you for watching with us at Food for Thought, and we'll end our time with the way we usually do, which is say a prayer that was crafted for us by Bishop Thomas Brown of Maine. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. Jesus Christ, you traveled through towns and villages, curing every disease and illness. At your command, the sick were made well. Come to our aid now in the midst of the global spread of the coronavirus. Heal those who are sick with the virus. May they regain their strength and health through quality medical care. Heal us from our fears, which prevents nations from working together and neighbors from helping one another. Be present with those in authority who are making hard decisions. Support the medical professionals, emergency responders, counselors, and caregivers. We ask this all in your name, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Let's say together the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Friends, go in peace to love and serve God. Spread the light of Christ to the world around you. The world needs it right now. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Did you know that you can join Christ Church from anywhere in the world? If you're feeling connected to what we're doing, email us today at communicate@christchurchwesterly.org.